So next, I actually wanted to talk to you guys about fascinating animals. And this is such a cool topic because there are literally millions of animals that I find fascinating in this world. Literally millions. And I thought, why not talk about five animals that I've randomly picked to talk about in this podcast today. And I'm gonna make different podcasts where I talk about different animals that I find fascinating because there are literally millions that I find fascinating that I want to talk about. But in this podcast, I just picked five randomly to talk about today. And the first animal that I'm going to talk about that I find super fascinating are orcas. Basically, killer whales are divided into separate subpopulations all over the world that each have their own distinct diet, their own different vocal sounds, and actually scientists I read that actually can tell sometimes one different ecotype from another by just listening to the vocal sounds. Their languages are that unique and they have such different vocal sounds from one another, the different ecotypes, and their diets are also completely unique. You have some ecotypes of killer whales that eat shark livers, you have some ecotypes of killer whales that eat dolphins, some that eat stingrays, some that eat turtles, some that eat really tiny fish like mackerel. So it's super fascinating, and I'm going to go into great detail about this with you guys. And I'm going to be talking about some different examples of different ecotypes all over the world to give you guys an example of how diverse their diets can be. Okay, so for example, I'm going to be talking about the different ecotypes in the North Pacific right now. Okay, so in the North Pacific, there are the resident killer whales, the big killer whales, and the offshore killer whales. The resident killer whales mainly eat fish, okay, like Chinook salmon, which is their primary food source. So they're eating small fish like the salmon, medium sized fish. Whereas the big killer whales, okay, literally eat seals, sea lions, and harbor seals. How fascinating is that? And the third ecotype example that I'm going to be talking about in the North Pacific are the offshores. Now, this ecotype of killer whales mainly eats shark livers, and that is so fascinating how these three ecotypes may sometimes cross one another's paths in the ocean while swimming, but they know that they have completely different diets from one another, and that's so fascinating how literally one ecotype can be eating Chinook salmon, and one can be eating harbor seals, and one can be eating sharks. And I'm gonna be giving you guys a few more examples of different ecotypes that I find super fascinating. So in the North Atlantic, there is the type 1 and the type 2 ecotypes of killer whales. The type 1 mainly eats schooling fish like mackerel and herring. Okay, really tiny fish, as you guys can imagine, schooling fish. And whereas the type 2 in the North Atlantic, they're known to eat even dolphins. So this is so fascinating how, again, you have two ecotypes that, yes, they do somewhat look similar. They also have a lot of different physical traits, but they have completely different diets. And this is so fascinating how one ecotype is eating tiny fish, whereas one is eating literally huge dolphins. And I find that so fascinating. And I'm going to talk about the different ecotypes. I'm going to give you guys a few examples of the ecotypes in the southern hemisphere as well, because I find even those so fascinating. So in the southern hemisphere, the ecotypes of the killer whales that I'm going to be talking about are the type A, type B1, type B2, type C, and type D. So the type A killer whales ecotype in the southern hemisphere mainly eat minke whales. Okay, you guys, minke whales they eat. Type B1, they are known to eat seals, but they are the ones that are known for the unique hunting method where they literally beach themselves on the shore to catch the seals. And it's so fascinating how that particular ecotype has been observed to do this hunting mechanism. And the type B2 ecotype of killer whales are mainly known to eat penguins. And literally, you guys, it's so fascinating how these different ecotypes have such varied diets. And basically, the type C ecotype of killer whales in the southern hemisphere are known to eat Antarctic toothfish, and they live in one of the most icy waters and cold waters on Earth. And the type D ecotype of killer whales in the southern hemisphere are actually known to eat Patagonian toothfish, and they live in one of the most stormy waters on Earth. And there actually have been a few reports that I've read about online in some articles that this particular ecotype are one of the smallest ecotype. They're found in the most stormiest waters, and there have been some instances where this ecotype actually steals Patagonian toothfish from the nets of fishermen that are trying to catch fish over there. So this is literally so fascinating. And a few more ecotypes that I find super fascinating that I want to talk about. There's an ecotype of killer whales near Spain, near the Strait of Gibraltar, which basically are only known to eat bluefin tuna mainly. That's their primary food source. There's also another ecotype that I read about near New Zealand, near the coast of New Zealand, that eats mainly electric rays, stingrays, and eagle rays. Again, super fascinating. And there's also an ecotype that I read about of a few individuals. Actually, I was watching a really beautiful video on this, um, of an ecotype of killer whales near South Africa. A few individuals that actually hunted the livers of great white sharks. And I literally find killer whales to be one of the most fascinating animals on the planet. And yeah, that was the first fascinating animal that I'm going to talk about. Now, the second fascinating animal that I'm going to talk about, um, definitely octopus. I feel like I don't know what the plural of octopus is. So definitely the octopus is one of the most fascinating animals out there. They have three hearts. They have nine brains. Um, they have blue color blood. It's, yeah, literally so fascinating. And yeah, octopus are one of the most intelligent creatures as well. They're one of the most intelligent cephalopods in the world, and they also have these really special skin cells called chromatophores where they can change their color and appearance based on their surroundings if a predator like a shark or an eel is nearby. And basically, they can uh, literally they can change their color and texture according to maybe the pattern of the jagged coral around them or the sand in order to evade the predators. And they can also release an ink if a shark or eel tries to predate on them. And that ink is not only, it doesn't only obscure the vision of the predator, it actually has an enzyme in it that can dull the sense of smell of the predator temporarily, so that the octopus can like escape through the corals and all, and temporarily the sense of smell of the predator is a little bit dulled so that it can't manage to track the octopus through the corals and the octopus escapes. So octopus are generally one of the most fascinating creatures. I also was reading up about this once, about how octopus, a lot of times octopus basically eat crawfish, they eat crayfish, they eat crustaceans, they eat mollusks. So there are a lot of discarded shells that they don't eat, so they basically um, they set these up outside their dens. So the discarded shells sometimes, or some stones that were probably there in the mollusk that were stuck there or something, basically these discarded shells or tiny bits of stones or anything, they basically actually put this outside their den. And it's called, it's, there's a term for it, I'm not sure, octopus garden, I think it's called an octopus garden, something that's like a term given to it that the octopus make outside their den. And basically it serves two purposes. It's like, it's also like, it's a good camouflage for the entrance of its den against any predator like a shark or eel that would swim nearby, so it's really well camouflaged. And sometimes also the structure of the den is like reinforced by putting these discarded shells, so it's really fascinating. I find octopus, I don't know the plural again, but I find octopus to be one of the most fascinating animals ever, and they're generally really really intelligent cephalopods, and they're really really beautiful. And basically they only have one hard part in their entire body, the beak, and the rest of their body doesn't have a single bone. So it's literally super 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 fascinating, you guys. Octopus are one of the most fascinating creatures out there. And yeah, and now the that was my second fascinating animal that I spoke about. And the third animal that I'm going to talk about that I find super super fascinating, oh my god, yes, the Baya Weaver bird. I find the Baya Weaver birds to be one of the most fascinating birds in the entire world, okay? Because they're literally, first of all, they're the most beautiful birds, and the the way they build their nest is so 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 fascinating. So I have seen a couple of Baya Weaver bird nests during trails, during safaris, and I'm just gonna add a few videos over here so you guys can see what a Baya Weaver bird nest looks like, and in case you haven't seen one. And basically Baya Weaver birds, as you guys can see, the nests are really really fascinating because there's like a vertical tube, okay, that goes down like a vertical narrow tube. And basically that has been structured in such a way by the Baya Weaver that a lot of the arboreal snakes like the common cat snake or bronzeback tree snakes literally cannot, even if they manage to, then there's another whole separate entrance that I'll explain to you guys to the nest. But most of the times the structure of the nest is in such a way that that vertical tube that opens from the bottom, the bronzeback tree snakes and other arboreal snakes most of the times cannot get in there. So the Baya Weaver birds eggs that it has laid in there are you tend to be safe from certain arboreal snakes with that special structure. But snakes can still sometimes get in there. So sometimes if a snake does manage to get in there, they make their nest so beautiful that there's an entrance that looks like it's the entrance of the nest, and there's a secret entrance that's right there above that the Baya Weaver birds actually use to get in as well. So I find this super fascinating. They're one of the most intelligent birds, and the way they make their nests is also really amazing. They actually pluck off certain grass from paddy fields, and they do it really fast. They tear, they put it on the nest, and they tear it from the paddy field and they put it on the nest. They're really beautiful birds, and one of the most fascinating creatures ever. And now that I'm talking about birds, the fourth uh, creature that I find super fascinating is also a bird. It's a South African penguin. And I find them fascinating because, unlike fairy penguins, which are the smallest penguins in the world, emperor penguins, which are the biggest penguins in the world, South African penguins are basically penguins that live on certain beaches in South Africa in hot climates on the beach. They build nests on the beach, they eat fish and squid from the ocean after swimming in it, and then they come back out on the beach and they live there. And it's so fascinating how you have a species of penguin that literally lives in a hot environment and thrives on the beaches, on certain beaches of South Africa. So I genuinely find South African penguins super fascinating as well. And the fifth animal that I find super fascinating, oh, definitely the dhole. I feel like dholes are one of the most fierce predators in the entire world. I have seen them a lot of times during safaris. When I had gone to Painch, I had seen them for the first time when I was really young. I had seen a pack of about five dholes, and they were actually chasing a spotted deer in order to eat it. And basically, dholes are really beautiful animals. They're one of the most fierce predators. They eat they eat deer like chittal deer, sambar deer, and they're really fierce predators. And they can be seen in packs of two dholes to up to even 15 to 20. So they're literally such fascinating animals, and they can even be found in mountains, sorry, not deserts, in mountains, in evergreen forests, in India, and in deciduous forests as well. I literally love those. And yeah, those were the five animals that I find super fascinating that I spoke to you guys about in today's video. There are millions of animals that I'm going to talk about that I find fascinating, but I randomly picked five. And yeah, that was me talking about five animals that I find super fascinating.